So if we want something, they won't attune to our needs. So if we're children, babies, we need a bottle because we're very, very thirsty, hungry, whatever it is. We'll like cry out. They need to attune to us. But these particular no empathy or low empathy parents, and empathy can be taught to some degree, and sometimes that's why what we need to do in this space is teach the parents empathy because they might not have had it as children, and to attune to the children. So we've got a lot going on in here. And when the child gets older, by misattuning with the child keeps seeking attention, trying to get their parents to tune back into them. Because when we have a parent tune into us, we feel safe, we feel loved, we feel it's amazing. It's like the sun shining on us. But allied parents who are in the family court system, they misattune to the children, which is the psychological abuse. So the children are often on the back foot, and we're often begging and pleading for attention from them. And we're very likely to be enmeshed with them because we're still trying to get that safety. This is our attachment networks we're talking about. So if there's any mucking around going on with the child's attachment networks and they are being told your parent's scary without any actual abuse going on, we've got a very serious problem. And this is what's not being seen in the courts.
Wow. So the breaking the child out of that enmeshed bond actually disrupts the new means that they get their needs met. In when you talked about that orbit, that's what they've become used to. Elise,
Yep.
we have got questions and comments flowing in just after just a short introduction to what you've introduced us to. I'm going to ask a larger question. What changes are required, or where do you see that we should start to address this?
We really need the mental health professionals and the court professionals to all start to see the red flags. And one of the red flags is when a child says, I'm scared of that parent, or I don't want to go with that parent, I want to stay with this one. That's not normal. Normal range parents, children in normal relationships are allowed to see their other parent. They want to see them. And a normal range parent would be like, of course.
I can confirm that. That's pretty much what happened to me. So we had a great relationship with my son, and it was pretty much from visit to next visit. One visit, we spent a whole weekend together, and next visit he came and say he doesn't wanna be with me anymore, and it's just unbelievable how court system in Australia and in other countries can just disregard this thing. It's he was 6 that time. If it was Even if it was 15-year-old, teenager, it's still pretty odd that that would happen. And it's not like I was with him over the day. I saw him once a month, you know, and all the previous visits were fine. And then suddenly the child just does not want to see the other parent without. Oh, he did tell me the issue, and that was that he say, "Oh, it's because you hit mommy," which was obviously fabricated. It was proven in the court that that not happened. Actually, the opposite. Yet she's still allowed to lie to him and brainwashed him. It's it's unbelievable.
Let's make time for that to happen. A child who is being used as a regulatory object and having their attachment networks mucked around with and in psychological abuse, these children stick very close to the allied parent. And to an untrained professional in a room, it looks like they have this really amazing close bond and wonderful relationship. But then they say things to us like, but I don't want to see my other parent because like I'm scared. And weak, frivolous excuses is one of the other things that they give us. And often we'll be listening for adult lines that children talk about. You know, he was awful to my mother. He was psychologically and physically abusing her, you know, from a 5-year-old. It's kind of like, right, so we need to be trained up in what to look for. And then as soon as we see that, we're mandatory reporters. So interestingly, are lawyers, magistrates, medical doctors, like all of us, we're all basically on the front who work on the front line in this field, we're all mandatory reporters. So
And that goes back to what I mentioned before in my previous video, not here. It goes back to the problem that in Australian family law, parental alienation is present it as a pseudoscience. It's not to be mentioned in a courtroom at all. There is just a handful of cases where it's been argued and the case been won as parental alienation. Otherwise, um, I've been advised to go the way of coercive control and emotional and psychological manipulation, because that's more likely that they will take into account than if you say the child's been alienated. And if I would say this, I haven't even tried, but if I was about to say this to the teachers or the therapist in a school, even the family reunification therapist, uh, if I was about to tell her that he's most likely alienated, or that he is, in my opinion, total 100%, but I need to draw her, I need her to come to the conclusion, not me giving her ideas, then they would just disregard, because the system, all these feminist lobby, they just say, oh no, parental alienation doesn't exist, and parental alienation is being used by the fathers as attack on mothers. It's not an attack, it's the why it's a problem. It's because in majority of the cases, mothers are the emotional and psychological abusers of the child, the kids. Certainly, there's some men doing that. I'm 100% sure of that, but the majority of the alienators would be mothers, and it's, in my opinion, why all the advocacy groups and United Nations Women's Family Court doesn't want to touch these topics, because it would raise up the female perpetrator stats if they take it in account.
we're really well trained in identifying sexual abuse and physical abuse, but how we and a lot of the time neglect, but how are we at identifying psychological abuse, which in the research actually says is worse than all the other abuses? And then we've got children who are being weaponized into spousal abuse. So these children are not only aligned and enmeshed with one parent, but they're also being taught that the other parent's dangerous and they're now weaponized against the other parent. And that's spousal abuse, and we've got to call it like it is.
Elise, we right now today we have parents joining us, we have professionals, so I see we have some legal professionals, some from the psychology. So the people you were just speaking to. What can our audience that are watching this do about this right now, whether we're a parent or a professional? You did mention that we need to change by seeing the red flags, but is there one pragmatic first step that you could give the broader audience of what can we do right now?
We need the mental health professionals who work in this field of child abuse to get really good at identifying the child's psychological abuse systems and the pathology, I mean. And they need to be very, there's a lot involved in this space. They can't just be custody litigation like it's this parent's the better parent than the other parent. That can't be going on. We've got to really have a much, much deeper understanding, especially all of the custody evaluators, the lawyers. They need to be able to um, notice this and flag it because they're mandatory reporters. So that needs to go straight out. If they're seeing any of these things, we need them to start reporting, and then they will get another evaluation and it will be off their hands. If they don't report child psychological abuse when they're seeing a child who's scared of another parent and it's not analyzed to see what kind of abuse it is, they're kind of contributing to the child abuse. And I'm really hardcore on this, and it's going to be very controversial, but this is how I feel. And they really, if they're going to work in this industry with children in high conflict divorce with these really dark personalities and difficult personality pathologies, they need to become much better trained.
Well, it's funny you say that because we've already got questions coming in about training for legal professionals and others. So we'll come to that in the Q&A that's coming up in this session. Elise, I think the final question I'd like to ask you, you mentioned your dad, you mentioned your own experience. I know it's a personal question, but do you mind sharing with us why this is so important? You are so passionate, you are so knowledgeable in this space, but why is this important to you in relation to your own relationship with your dad?
Yeah. Well, as a young child, my father left us. He was very young, in his 20s, got married to my mother. She had 3 children under 3. My mother has a very serious background, never diagnosed. And I need to say to everyone, the traumas that are presenting in the family court, a lot of them with these high conflict divorced parents, they've got a lot of childhood trauma that's unresolved. So we need to have some compassion for them in that space. So I won't go into my mum's too much, but she has a pretty hardcore childhood. She went to boarding school at age 12. Stuff happened. Then she went into nursing. When she was 18, she basically never went home. So she has a lot of abandonment stuff. So when my father and she got married in their very early 20s, had 3 kids under 3, and he went off and did a few things that he shouldn't have done, and he had.
I put my input into this as well. So, mother of my son also had a childhood trauma. She's from single parent family raised by her mother and her aunt. I do, even before I found out about, or I got involved in being alienated from my son, I did strongly believe that it does play a role in her behavior. And that's another point I want to make. How the government's planning to break circle of abuse, how they call it, how they want to break a circle of abuse if the majority of the abusers come from families that are traumatized with whatever happened in there. So they come out of the family and then they are encouraged to break up with their spouse and they're not held responsible for their actions. It's never going to solve any problems because you're not treating the problem. So let's say no, let's say that's a fact. My parents are still together over 60 years, 55 years. I never had any issues when I was young. Had a pretty happy relationship. Her, on the other hand, her she never told me in detail what, but she never loved her father. She doesn't even know who he is. She grew up with her mother and aunt, as I said, and she had to run away from the country of origin because of some issues, which I won't talk about here. And then she is encouraged by the system to just take law in her own hands and kidnap, abduct my son, alienate him, make false accusations to get advantage of the system, get all the government subsidies. She's still not working. She's still on a dole. He's 8 years old, you know. It feels like the government support these behaviors. That's that's how it is. And it will never solve anything. It's just gonna get worse and worse.
Amidst that, with a couple of other people, that caused a narcissistic injury that stuck with my mother and is still there and has never been worked on, and she has not done any work on herself. Then what happens is she brings in the 3 children, and we are now her regulatory objects. So living with a parent who's in that space, and then she was also had a lot of persecutory delusional stuff going on. So we would be privy to that. We would hear it. We would be part of that. And a lot of the time, when you're being told that from a parent, you're sharing in the delusion. So we've got a bit of factitious disorder imposed on another happening. We've got shared delusional disorder with the child. We've got spousal abuse. So we've got all these things going on that nobody ever noticed. And then it wound up and wound up, and she got a lot of alliances, and then changed our names and moved us all into state. So we were abducted. And then I did not see my father from the age of 8 through till 30. That's why I work in this space, because, and then it never stopped. That narrative, we were in danger, he's dangerous, blah, blah, blah. But the whole time it's very hard because, like, I knew my father and I loved my father. So you're being told all this stuff. It's not true, but everybody believed the stories that were being told. And if the mental health professionals had, or the school professionals had stepped forward and said, hey, why are these kids going to so many different schools? Why are these kids alone all the time? Where's the father? And why are they so terrified? And why aren't they talking to anyone? If someone had done a report on us, we would have been in the system and potentially it would have been noticed. So that's why I'm saying we're all mandatory reporters. That's why I study this, because I've lived it. I'm in my 50s and it doesn't stop. Okay, it doesn't stop. Once you turn 18, the pathological parent is still in your life. You still have to go to weddings, funerals. They're still trying to poison you against the other parent. It doesn't stop. So we have to get better at identifying it, assessing it, diagnosing it, treating it, and then trying to get it out of the court system.
Well, the comments rushing in are showing a lot of gratitude for your passion and drawing some purpose from your pain. And I want to say thank you. We are going to come back to you, Elise. There's a lot of questions that we'd like to put back to yourself in the Q&A later on in this session. Thank you so much. Thank you for, I know it's only a short period of time there, but I think we need to expand on some of those topics based on the comments and questions coming in. So thank you. We'll come back to you in the Q&A. Thanks, Elise.
So yeah, here I am. For those of you who are going through things like that, I would really recommend In that pack they have lots of resources with lots of knowledgeable people there. There is also another, and that's a worldwide conference on parental alienation. Again, lots of these people you see that they speak there as speakers. If you're in Australia, join Dads in Distress group. Um, there you can find in your area. Most likely there is a in-person group where you can go and meet other dads. Um, they have Zoom meetings on multiple times per week where you can meet professionals like we just seen. I'm a bad host, I forgot her name. Alice. Okay, Alice. That's her page. She operates. She's in New South Wales in Sydney, I believe. But that's just one of the uh, really good counselors and solicitors. Last week there was another very good guy. I should have an interview with him soon. And this thing needs to change. Um, it's a shame that in Australia it's not even considered as a thing, you know. It's just a handful of these professionals who realize how bad it is. But if you go on the page of the Family Federal Court, we'll just say it's a pseudoscience which is absolutely mind-boggling, absolutely mind-boggling. And then they go and talk about, oh yeah, it's we do what's in best interest of the child. They put this phrase in there, so it just could be whatever, you know, just whatever they don't have any responsibilities. It's just yeah. Oh. Okay, so it was my first live stream. Um, Hopefully next time be better. Um, we had issues with the internet connection, so that dropped off. So I was streaming on X, on YouTube, and on Rumble. I was monitoring the streams throughout. Looks like it was happening. I will review it again. Hopefully all the audios worked. If they didn't, I'll just take the streams down if there was issues and try next time be better prepared and review some other knowledgeable professionals on this topic and other topics. Okay, thank you for watching. See you for now.